You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC Conroe and worldwide on the irlonestar.com.
Hi, this is Tony Collins, and you're here with us today with the Legal Connection Show. My co-host Cheryl is not here with us. She broke her ribs. Just sort of an odd thing, and she was explaining it to me. But let me go ahead and tell you more about our show. This is the Legal Connection Show. We are here today. We are a public service radio channel that helps you if you have any legal questions. And you can reach us at www.thelegalconnectionshow.com. And if you have any questions, you can send them to questions@thelegalconnectionshow.com. And we will get around to answering those questions for you, possibly on the air, if you allow us to, if you give us permission. And we might use them anyway and not give you, not give you a shout out or use your name if you want to keep it confidential. Today's show is going to be on juvenile law. And initially, Cheryl and I had contemplated doing the show on annexation. But with that topic, I had wanted to bring in some of our local city officials. And since all of them seem to be sort of out of pocket today, campaigning or working or doing whatever they do, I've decided to go to a topic that I think is of a lot of interest to our listeners, and that's juvenile law. Now, juvenile law is law that has to do with children under 17 and how the law addresses when there's misbehavior, possible criminal activity, but it's not called a crime when a person is not adjudicated as an adult and they're under 17. And it's an area of law that, unless you have kids, you really you're interested in it if some kid does something bad to you and you hear about it on TV or the radio or what have you, in the newspaper. But other than that, you probably don't have a vested interest in knowing about all the particulars about what will happen with kids. But it is a well-versed area of law, and with any of y'all that are young parents, may want to see what you're getting yourselves into, or just know what your rights are and what your kids' rights are. That's what we're going to talk about today. And so we had some questions, and I'm going to answer some of those. But there's so many different topics that go into juvenile law, and it is how do I put this? It's when you go to court, you don't go to a criminal court. You go to the juvenile court. And I do a Bible study on the weekends. I think I learn more than the kids do, actually, with some kids that are they're not, I wouldn't call it's incarceration, but it's not. It's like in these youth camps, because they are not considered adults, and they have to be rehabilitated is what it's called. And so a lot of those kids have some questions about where they're at and what they need to do and that kind of thing. But let's just get started with some of the listener questions, and we're going to talk about liability of parents for their children's acts. So all you people that have young children that you're thinking this is you couldn't wait, which is a wonderful thing to have kids, but sometimes your kids have their own free will, as we all know, and they choose to do the wrong thing, and there are repercussions to that, and sometimes the parents get kind of pulled into this. And so I guess the first question that we have is it right to hold a person responsible for the acts of another? And that goes for children or adults. And usually, the answer is usually not. One adult can't control the behavior of another, and as a rule, has no duty to do so. But what if a person who does not have the duty to control someone else's behavior doesn't? And that harm results to a third party. That's what happens when your kids do something wrong, generally, depending on their age and that kind of thing. And the first thing that comes to mind is kids in a supermarket. And you've seen the commercial where, or maybe on YouTube or Facebook, where there's some kid at Walmart that's knocking down all the displays while the mom passively sort of her discipline style is to let the kid do whatever they need to do so they can kind of grow, while everybody around, including the store manager, is incensed by her lack of discipline. And so you kind of this kind of answers that in a small way. Parents have a duty to use reasonable discipline to control their children. They're supposed to teach them the appropriate behavior and see that they follow the rules. If a child causes harm to someone else, the child usually has no money of his own to pay for that third party's loss. So what's fair? For the third party to bear the loss, or for the children's parents to do so? There isn't a perfect answer, but there is a legal one, and you may decide to think more carefully about giving Dick or Jane the keys to the family car. Very, very important. I've seen this happen so many times. I have a case right now where a friend I went to high school with, her son, actually it wasn't even a juvenile, it was her husband, her now ex-husband, was driving while intoxicated in the son's car, and this actually happened to even another client of mine, and this person ran into somebody, which was bad. The other person had run into a car, and what they do is they call the police, and they leave the scene, they call the police and declare the car having been stolen, which is terrible. And generally, this is not something you should ever do. In both instances, I take that back. In one instance, they got caught. In the other instance, they pulled off this little charade, which was pretty bad. But what happens is somebody will witness it, and they'll trace the car title back to somebody, and the insurance companies get involved, and then it's just a comedy of I don't want to say of errors, but it's just always best to tell the truth. I think that if there's a situation where somebody is driving a vehicle while intoxicated, whether it's a youth or whatever, it's nice to kind of cultivate and form some kind of story, but the truth will set you free. And silence is golden. As an attorney, I'll say use your Fifth Amendment rights. But ultimately, if somebody has caused harm by that behavior, there should be a compensation, and insurance companies get involved. So that's what we have insurance for. I'm sure the person that was driving the car had no intent to harm somebody. But at any rate, that being said, let's go back to children's acts. What happens when you're 12 to, let's say, 17, because that's the age of, that's when you're considered a juvenile in the eyes of the law, 17 and under. Let's say your kid, even younger, 10 years old, gets the keys to your car and decides that they want to experience adulthood early because they've watched you drive and they are pretty good at it. I was listening to the radio about a year ago when it came up that a 12-year-old girl had taken the family car and went on a joyride, and there was a police chase that ensued. And I believe ultimately she was caught. She was mad at her grandmother or something. And there was some liability. She was held accountable to a very limited extent for all of the damage that she caused. They tried to hold her grandmother liable, but I guess her grandmother got around it too. But this goes to keep your keys under wrap. Get a lockbox for your car keys. That seems to be a reoccurring action with juveniles that misbehave, is taking the car and causing harm to third parties without their parents knowing. Anyway, can parents be held liable for their children's acts? So I will ask this question to our station engineer, Ethan. What do you think? Can parents be held liable for their children's acts?
I think it all depends on the age. Like, I think, well, I don't know about liable per se. I think it's kind of a gray area because, like, it's obviously when you, like, turn 18 and, you're an adult and your decisions, even when you're, like, 17, I still don't think that. But like underneath that, it's like still like a gray area. It's not. I'm not exactly sure.
Good answer, because the answer is sometimes. I recall so vividly the ages of 12 forward, and so I think 12 is kind of the age of reason. In fact, I remember 10 forward. Um, Kids get married and have kids at 15. We've seen all the shows on, I guess on the internet. What are those channels? When you see them on cable, or I don't even think it's cable anymore. It's direct TV or satellite. And so children are not necessarily children anymore when they're making adult decisions, and they become emancipated by their own acts many times. But you're exactly right. Depending on the age, that's how they determine whether or not in a court they can be adjudicated or certified to be an adult and be held accountable for their acts at a younger age. And a lot of things go into this criteria, and they usually get ad litem's to represent the kids and that kind of thing to determine what court they should be in. But the book answer is, a parent has the duty to control and discipline a child. Therefore, if a child's negligence causes property damage and his negligence is due to his parents' failure to control or discipline him, the parents can be held liable for the damage. The child's age doesn't matter as long as he's under 18. And that's another gray area, because 17 and older, you are in the criminal courts, in the state of Texas, but you're still considered a juvenile if you're under 18. And so that can present problems for the courts also, because that gray area between 17 and 18, when kids, as we all know, and we were there once too, between 17 and 18 are behaving like adults, but their brains are still, they haven't had the experience to make a lot of really good decisions. They're motivated by the 7 deadly sins, gluttony, greed, envy, I forget what they all are right off, but 17-year-olds are, many of them are not making good decisions. I can say that I know many 17-year-olds that are amazing. So that doesn't go across the board. But that being said, a child of 12 through 17 if a child between the ages of 12 and 17 willfully and maliciously does something that results in property damage, the parents are liable, period. If the child is under 12 or over 17, they are not liable. Nor are they liable if the child was married when the damage occurred. So if you get married, you're emancipated, because now the spouse takes that on, whether it be a girl or a guy. Okay, so that being said, I know that we're getting ready to go on a break. This is the Legal Connection Show. We're talking about juvenile law today. And when we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit further about parents' liability if you have some kids that may need a little bit more discipline, or what liability you may have if they're falsely accused and that kind of thing. So we will talk to you when we get back after this station break.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julian Shea here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
A Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question or comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station at irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
With the Legal Connection Show. That's the TLC show, getting you a little legal TLC. My co-host Cheryl is not with us today because she broke her rib, and I miss her. I miss having her dialogue, but I've got the station engineer, Ethan, that I'm bouncing some ideas off of, and this is kind of fun. So feel free to contact us at www.legalconnectionshow.com. If you have any questions, you can email us at questions@legalconnectionshow.com. We have a voicemail if you have any questions about this show or just any general legal questions. We'll be happy to answer them to the extent that we can, but we are doing this as a public service, so we won't know all of the particulars about your case unless you were actually to hire us. We're also on Facebook at the www.facebook.com, The Legal Connection Show, and we are at irlonestar.com on Tuesdays between 12 and 1, and you can listen to us on the internet. We have podcasts if you want to look at that later, and we are on the FM 104.5 and 106.1 when you ever listen to us. Okay, now after all that station identification, the one thing that comes to mind that I didn't mention is this is Holy Week, and I know y'all, despite or no matter what your religion is, it's holy for many religions, and it's something that's been on my mind. I went to Mass this morning, and it really was just taken by the whole passion of Christ and reliving what he had done for us and that kind of thing. And it goes toward kind of what we're talking about today, because we are all God's children, and we are talking about juvenile law and the law of children. And we have to behave we are taught by God how to behave by the Ten Commandments. And here we are sort of taking an agency as parents of children to teach them to behave, or there are consequences. And so that's what we're kind of talking about today, was the consequences of the liability of parents for their children's acts. And so the next question that we had is there any limit to the dollar amount of property damage for which parents can be held liable? And so I'm going to go over once again to interact with Ethan. What do you think?
Can you restate the question?
Yes, yes, Your Honor. Is there any limit to the dollar amount of property damage for which parents can be held liable?
I'm going to say no.
This is odd. I would have said no too, because you would think that if they're liable, they're liable. The answer is yes. The most parents can be required to pay for their child's willful and malicious conduct is $25,000. That means all you'd have to have insurance for is $25,000, plus court costs and attorney's fees. They can only be held liable for the actual amount of damages, not for punitive damages, but the $25,000 limit applies to a single incident. If the child does the same thing next week, his parents can be liable for up to $25,000 in damages all over again. So there does need to be some discipline because your child keeps doing the same thing. That could run your bill up quite a bit. A law concerning property damage to hotels says one incident doesn't cover incidents in separate rooms. So if you're in the Woodlands and you're renting out the hotel for your child's prom or graduation, and there's a lot of rooms, and I've seen parents do this, beware, because this could run your bill up considerably. Get a lot of insurance. As for damage negligently caused by a child, if it happened because his parents weren't controlling or disciplining him, there is no legal limitation on the amount of property damage the parents may be required to pay. So the answer is kind of both. There is no limit if the parents were negligent, because you can sue the parents, all right? Okay, so how is parental liability determined? A lawsuit is filed by the damaged party. And, the first thing that comes to mind is next door neighbors. If you've got some kid that's, running the fence down or throwing stuff over the fence, or runs the car into the neighbor's, lot, or, does something to dog. Let's say you have a bad seat, or maybe just, it's an innocent thing. That's the first thing that comes to mind, is because these are not just third parties you don't know. These are people that you don't know that well necessarily, depending on how far apart you live and that kind of thing, and how often the neighbors change if there's a turnover in the neighborhood. But if the parents of the child who caused the damage must be given proper notice and a chance to hire an attorney. Unless the attorneys reach an agreement, a judge or a jury will decide the issue of whether the parents are liable for the damages, and if so, the amount they must pay. And this is like in any lawsuit. If there is, if somebody has made some kind of claim, whether it's with the child or not, you have, because of the law and our Constitution, the right to be heard by a judge or jury. unless a settlement can be reached beforehand. Now, can a child sue a parent? What do you think, Ethan? Can you sue your parents?
Can you sue your? I would say no. I mean,
Would you want to sue your parents?
then you're going into the whole. I don't know. It's just like depends on how old you are, I guess. But like, if you're like over 18, but like if you're a 7-year-old, then you like, taking away like your cookie could be like something that would like vex you really bad, and you're like, I'm going to sue you for taking away my cookie. You're a thief. Yeah. And so like, again, I think it all depends on the age. Like if you're over 18, you're an adult, and they do something, you can. It depends on the legal
That's
system.
a good response. If you're over 18, of course you can sue your parents, and it happens all the time. Like J. Howard Marshall, the son, I think he didn't sue his father, but he sued the estate. But he was suing against his father's wishes, or to determine his father's wishes, I suppose. But I don't know exactly what the ramifications or the actual claims were in the Anna Nicole Smith lawsuit. I don't know why I keep gravitating to Anna Nicole Smith and the J. Howard Marshall lawsuit, but I knew that the sons had sued her, and there was a lot of family discord. But yes, adult children sue their parents all the time. It is not, I don't want to say it's that common. And that kind of goes to me toward honor thy father and thy mother. Really, I think from the big picture standpoint, God gave you those parents. You shouldn't be suing them. You should just perhaps maybe walk away, but don't be, it just adds to the whole parental discord and the quality of your life when you go around suing your parents. But yes, the answer is yes, you can sue a parent. The answer is it depends, but let's go to your 7-year-old example. It's unlikely that a 7-year-old, unless they were really bright or had a parent that was a lawyer, would know that they would have the rights to sue their parent. They may get mad, and as I recall, I tried to run away at 7. I filled my Barbie, Tootie and Todd dollhouse with the essentials, which I think was a diet. I don't think they had Diet Coke, but it was a Coke and some a Little Debbie Swiss cake roll. I remember being really angry about something and leaving. But mine was a fight or flight, and I really didn't care if I was in an orphanage. I just did not want to be there anymore. And I think within the next 10 minutes, after Mother told me to go ahead and go, she was reading some story to me, and it was not necessarily all forgotten. But when you're 7, your brain is like tomato, and it's mush, and so you really don't know right from wrong, and your parents need to have the gentle hand that I guess God would have with you if we live in His, in His image, that you would have with your kids. Okay, so that being said, the answer is, well, it depends. In the past, children could not sue their parents for injuries arising from the parents' negligent acts if those acts occurred in the course of the performance of the custodial parental duties. Those duties are wide-ranging, but since 1971, I guess hippie age, a series of cases has allowed a child to sue a parent for damages in certain circumstances where the act which caused the injuries wasn't basically the performance of a normal parental duty. And, the first thing that comes to mind, and this may not be a good example, but I see it in my line of work, is step-parents and adoptive parents that are doing bad things to their children, whether it be taking their trust fund or, abusing them. Happens a lot with CPS. That's why CPS has to get involved. There has to be third parties that are recognizing the child's abuse. But you can now sue your parents, particularly if they've got a lot of money and they're getting away with this junk. They've opened up the doors to allow you to do that. So that being said, I know that now we are getting ready to go onto a station break. So we are WWWIR Lone Star Radio, and this is the Legal Connection Show. We will be back shortly, and we'll be discussing some of the alternatives to suing your parent and what types of cases where that can you can go forward and employ that type of solution.
Hispanic Chamber Connections with Dr. Carlos Sanchez, President of the Woodlands Conroe Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, featuring event announcements, member highlights, and more. Tuesdays at 1 p.m., broadcasting from the heart of Conroe, Texas on irlonestar.com in Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1.
A Lone Star Community Radio is ready for the summer. If you or anyone you know is looking for summer internship opportunities, a Lone Star Community Radio is a great place to grab the mic and be on the air. A Lone Star Community Radio offers a great opportunity to those interested in learning about the radio world all year round. Be an on-air personality, talk show producer, or YouTube, TV, podcast editor. Contact the station at info@irlonestar.com or call the station's message line at 936-647-3776.
Hi, this is Tony L. Collins, and you're listening to the Legal Connection Show. Again, our website is www.legalconnectionshow.com, and my co-host Cheryl is out today because she broke her rib, and we all want to pray for her that she feels a little bit better. That is just, a horrible situation to be in, and she told me she's in so much pain. It just makes me think back on our law enforcement and public servants that help us all the time, and they get injured like this, and she's telling me how much pain they're in, and you just really, when you put it all into perspective, it's just, you have to really appreciate and honor them for what they do for us. Anyway, to get back onto our topic, we were talking about whether or not a child can sue a parent, and since 1971, children can sue their parents. A lot of things were happening back in 1971. I can just, I vaguely remember that. I was like 10 years old at the time, and ice skating, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an Olympic champion, so I was skating every day, so I wasn't involved in reading the paper. I don't think many 10-year-olds are anyway, but it was just a really, that period during the Vietnam War, and there was so much civil rights and gender rights and all these type of things happening that a lot of new laws were passed. And in 1971, they passed a law so that you could sue your parents. Now, children have been permitted to sue their parents for injuries received in an automobile accident resulting from the parents' negligence. So don't get any ideas, kids. Usually it's the other parent, if they're divorced, that does this to get money. But these things do happen, and so kind of bear that in mind. If it's really severe, then and there's some money that needs to be had to make them whole, then that's the right thing to do. But again, honor thy father and thy mother was probably just an accident. And that's why they call it an accident. And a child who has been permitted to bring a wrongful death action against the estate of his father for the death of his mother in an airplane crash in which the father was a pilot of the plane. So depending on the circumstances, kids can sue their parents, but it's never a happy time when it goes to that extent that the parents are suing, children are suing their parents. And the same thing can go for parents suing their children, which happens too. You kind of want to, we only have a short time here in life, and, one of the commandments is honor your father and their mother. And parents, I think morally you could sue your kids, but certainly children shouldn't sue their parents. It's just morally improper, unless something really, really bad happened, and then still that wouldn't be something I would probably look. I don't think anybody would. I don't think God would look highly upon that. So anyway, here, it's kind of going along with that topic, is children who are suspected of breaking the law. And this is something that I've been involved with when my own kid, not my kids didn't break the law, fortunately. I don't know whether I was a good parent or just got lucky. I think the latter. But children that smoke pot at school, and they're accused of shoplifting at the mall, and various other, driving without a license. There's a lot of things that kids do sort of almost as a passive right to be adults, I guess, or just being kids, and they get in trouble with the law. And so this is for you parents and kids that need to know about this. Children who break the law present unique problems. Whether they're a shoplifter or a killer, you just can't handle a 12-year-old exactly the same way that you're going to handle someone who's 38 who's committed the same crime before. At the same time, you certainly don't want to ignore their actions, because there are always consequences and repercussions for things that people do intentionally. or you need to determine whether they're negligent or reckless, or what the different levels are. In answer to that dilemma, special laws were enacted regarding children who commit crimes, and special courts called juvenile courts were established to administer those laws. Although all 50 states now have juvenile courts, the first was established in Illinois. It's kind of interesting. I didn't think Illinois was the maverick for that kind of thing, but I guess the state of our former president and Oprah, I guess they are. What is Chicago the third largest city? What is Chicago? You have any idea?
I have no idea.
I know it's pretty large, though. I think they're the third largest behind New York City and Los Angeles, and Houston's fourth, so we're in the running with them. But anyway, I'll go with you. I'll say because of the God, there's a lot of crime in Chicago and what have you. Maybe that's why. They do handle some other types of cases now, but juvenile courts first came to being to address two basic problems: children who break the law and children who are abused, neglected, and abandoned. I mean, there's both sides of the sword where children need to be protected and their cases need to be adjudicated. Some jurisdictions with large populations have juvenile courts which hear nothing but juvenile cases. And in some other areas, a court which hears many kinds of cases also is designated as a juvenile court, court of law. And I know that in Harris County we have juvenile courts, and I've been to the juvenile court building many times, and it is just, it's just crazy town. I don't even have to describe it. You've got parents who don't really know who to turn to, what kind of lawyer to hire. You've got judges that can't hold the children necessarily because you can't have a bond for a kid. The first thing you learn when you start representing children is they're either going to stay in what's called juvie or juvenile detention until a parent can pick them up, or they're going to, they find that there's a safe place for them to go and they're not going to be doing anything bad, or they're going to stay in juvenile detention. So there's two ways. You're either going home with your parents or an adult that can supervise you, and the court feels that they can do that, or you're going to stay in juvenile detention. And it's a really sad place for these kids to be because they're being yanked from their school, they're being yanked out of their environment, and the juveniles that I've represented, for the most part, are sincerely some of the nicest kids. You wouldn't know that they're doing these bad things, and a lot of it is just lack of parental guidance. They're by themselves a lot, and they may be in gangs, and the gangs are after them. And one kid that I represented just loved this kid. He was 15, the sweetest kid ever. He was accused of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And what happened was he opened fire on a carload of people in a Tahoe outside of his house. And that in of itself sounds just terrible, but the circumstances were very different than what was being being portrayed on the claim in the claim. The kid had been tracked down and was being assaulted by his gang members, and they had beat him up severely in the park and had come back around in this car to further assault him, and this has been going on for a few months. And so what do you do when you're trying to protect yourself and your parents aren't around and your life has been threatened, and now you've gone and you actually have guns? This is what happened to this kid. He didn't know how to protect himself, and they had threatened his life and his parents' life, and so he opened fire. And fortunately, nobody got hurt. This guy, he must have had a guardian angel looking after him and the people that were involved in this, because he blew out the windows of this car, and not one person was injured. And so that's just by the grace of God that nothing worse happened. So anyway, you have to look at the whole story, and that's what the juvenile courts are for. Many times you're appointed an attorney, but these kids in general shouldn't be looked upon as really bad kids. There's always two sides of the story, and you want to get them into a good environment. And I'm telling you what, the parents have many, many children. The parents are doing the best they can. They're working 2 and 3 jobs, trying to take care of the family. They're religious. It's just a situation that society needs to address. And as an attorney, it breaks my heart when I'm trying to get them back out of this situation. But many times these kids need rehabilitation because they are on drugs. They're involved with drug dealers that have sort of taken them into the fold, and they're required to, by the drug dealers, to do their dirty deeds, or else they're going to hurt them, and that's kind of what happened here. So that all being said, when you say that there's a lot of bad kids out there, these bad kids really need, as a community, as a village, for us to help a lot of them. And it's just the understanding of that one person that can step in and help that may make all the difference. And so just kind of bear that in mind. Anyway, the majority of our laws which concern children who commit crimes are found in the Juvenile Justice Code, which is a part of the Texas Family Law Code. Our legislators have tried to balance two important interests when these laws were drafted. They wanted to ensure the safety of the community. At the same time, they needed to provide treatment, training, and rehabilitation for the children who are breaking the law. So it is important that, it's twofold, just like they said, just like with any crime. You need to protect the people that are being injured, and at the same time, you need to help the children who need guidance and rehabilitation. And they attempted to promote this concept of punishment for criminal acts, yet, where appropriate, to remove the taint of criminality from the children. And as a practical matter, it's not always easy. And we're going to talk about that in society and some of the things that you need to look at as parents and as teachers and even juvenile court attorneys. We're going to look at that when we come back. This is the Legal Connection Show, and we'll continue with our discussion on juvenile law when we come back.
Hey guys, this is Connor.
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
And we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your questions. Get seen on TV, YouTube, and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Support your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
Hi, this is Tony L. Collins, and you're listening to the Legal Connection Show and we can also be found at www.legalconnectionshow.com. If you have any questions that we would answer on this topic or on any other legal topic, we will try to address them. We can do it individually. We can do it off the radio or directly, because we're trying to do a public service here. You can send those questions at questions@legalconnectionshow.com, or you can leave a voicemail at 281-529-5862. And my co-host Cheryl is out today with a broken rib. So let's all pray that she feels a lot better. And we're going to continue our discussion about juvenile law. What we kind of talked about before is that, and it's sort of something that's kind of true to, well, not true to my heart, but something that's kind of on my heart all the time. And it's, we were all children once, and we know that the kids kind of go off in a wrong direction for various reasons, whether they feel unloved or, need more attention than someone else. Who knows what all the reasons are, but not all youthful lawbreakers can be rehabilitated, no matter how hard we try. And the society must be protected from those who cannot. But we have to remember that the majority can, and they need to get the help that they need. And there's just no, there's no simple explanation with the emergence of, with with the emergence of drugs, and especially crack cocaine, the advent of gangs, the deep trouble in parts of our economy that have played a large part in this, and delinquency and failure to have good role models. There's just, we've heard it all before. There's just a multitude of reasons why kids kind of go off in the wrong direction. And we've also heard all the really good stories about how kids can get on the right track with the right rehabilitation, attention, love, if somebody just listens. If I look back on my own situation when I was like 17, I think that I really just needed somebody that I could trust, that would listen to me. And fortunately, I had some very, very good friends. They're still my very good friends. I'll give a shout out to my friend Miranda. Love her to death. Been one of my best friends since high school. And Dr. Vicky Short. These are friends that I made in high school that, had it not been for them to lean on and to listen to, I wouldn't be where, I wouldn't be alive today. I just think that with their guidance and help and just having their trust and someone to talk to, it really helped me. And so all you kids out there, remember the friends that you make now, if you choose them correctly and not trusting people that you don't know well, these are going to be your friends for life. And even I'm almost 58, I'm still very, very close friends with people I met in high school. So just kind of bear that in mind. These are not, a lot of times the people that you meet and become friends with will be your friends for life if you choose properly and you treat them well and that kind of thing. Okay, which kind of goes to, what Jesus says, treat people like you want to be treated. And that goes a long way in life. Now, here's a question that I will kind of throw out there to Ethan. What can happen to a child who commits a crime? Just kind of, what do you think in general?
Like
Under age 17 child.
I would depends on. I guess it would depend on the crime, but I mean, if it warranted like jail time, I suppose like juvenile hall or something like that.
Yeah, juvie, which I'd never even heard of until I was an adult.
Oh.
Like you're going to juvie.
I heard that all the time when I was a kid.
Oh no!
Not towards me. Like,
Yes. I'm just thinking that I had never even heard the word juvie until I moved up here to Conroe, and then suddenly it was like just a part of the common dialogue with parents to their children. And I'm talking every economic level. They would be like, "You're going to go to juvie if you don't behave," and I'm like, they threaten their kids to go to juvie? This must be, that this is where they go to the threat. And this is before I was actually doing a lot more juvenile law. So there really is a juvie, and the kids really will stay in juvenile detention, at least until their parents can pick them up, if they do come pick them up, until they're released. And so, but what happens is, you've gotten that partially correct, but I will give you sort of the more textbook answer is, if the child is under the age of 17, the offense isn't called a crime. In Texas, it's called delinquent conduct. So there really is such a thing as a juvenile delinquent. If you're under 17 and you do something bad, and you're not married or emancipated, it's delinquent conduct. And less serious offenses are referred to as conduct in need of supervision. Well, that goes without saying. I think parents all know that, and teachers. Lawmakers tried to spare children the stigma of being labeled criminals. I don't know. I never spore my kids that, if they're criminals, I'm like, you're a little criminal, and, there's going to be a price to pay. So when you did something wrong, what did your parents do?
It kind of depended. I obviously I'd get in trouble. When I was a kid, I'd probably get spanked if it was...
so corporal punishment was not frowned upon at your home.
No. I learned my lesson, so...
Yeah, I think that there's something to that. You spank a child so they won't run out in the street and get a ball and get hit by a car.
Yeah.
And as they get a little bit older, they're remembering that. There's a certain point when, I do recall this from my own familial experience, when the kids are stronger than the parents. And my brothers would fight my parents. Fight back with them. I was stunned. I was too timid for that. I would just watch the brawl. It was just unbelievable to me. And I don't remember there being any actual discord. It was just their reaction was completely implausible and not something that I understood from my own disposition, that you would actually physically fight with your parents. But they did, and they all turned out okay. So I guess there's corporal punishment is not a bad thing necessarily.
Well,
Done with,
I
within
have
limits.
a good example for when I was little, I also put my finger on a stove,
Oh, okay.
and I burned my finger, and it hurt really bad. Guess who's not putting their finger on a stove ever again?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that's
And that is more of your own doing example, but that's exactly right. If your parents, just like I guess it really is really kind of a bad example, but if you're training your pet, if there's some pain to something they shouldn't be doing, then they're going to remember that consequence. They're like Pavlov's dog; they're not going to do it again. So within limits, I think that corporal punishment, no matter what some of the do-gooder societal people in CPS want to do, I think that it's appropriate to use that as a disciplinary method. But anyway, what happens to a child who breaks the law depends upon two things: the age of the child and what they did. If the child is 10 through 16, he or she may have to appear in juvenile court to answer charges filed against him or her by the state of Texas. If the offense is a minor one, she may go instead to a municipal or just a justice court, like, just one of your little JP courts out here. And and we're talking about, crimes that are just, that are less, that you would see as a parent, like maybe shoplifting. If it's shoplifting, you're not going to juvenile court. Shoplifting, like a pair of earrings at the mall, more than likely you're going to the JP court, and there's going to be, a reprimand by your parents because they have to go with you, and the judge, and there's going to be some consequences of community service and what have you. But and if you do it again, now that's you're actually a kleptomaniac, and there's a problem here, and so you're not going back just to the JP court. You're probably going to be hauled into juvenile. But anyway, if the child is 17, but the offense charged occurred before her 17th birthday, I don't know why it's using the word her, and this is what I'm reading here. I'm going to say he or she will still appear in juvenile court rather than stand trial in the adult criminal court, which is just surprising to me. If somebody is 3 days shy of 17, they are not getting hauled into the big court, the scary court. They are still going to be handled, even if they appear, because there's a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds that look very old for their age, they're still going to go into the juvenile court. Now, that's kind of scary, though, for the kids that are 9 or 10, because they're being adjudicated in the same court with somebody that, from a standpoint of just experience and maturity, is much, much older than them. If a child is 9 or younger, he or she cannot be charged with an offense in juvenile court. However, his or her behavior may indicate that abuse or neglect is present, and law enforcement and CPS, and I don't think they're called CPS anymore, they have all these different letters that stand for whatever, but it's going to be Child Protective Services that come around to investigate what's going on in the case. Now, this can be pretty bad, though, because you may have a very intelligent 9-year-old, or you may have a very manipulative parent that will use their children to do their dirty deeds like little gypsies. So this is also a problem, and that's when the parents have to come involved, and that's why CPS gets involved. All right, so we're going to get ready to take a break. This is the Legal Connection Show. We're talking about juvenile law. Hopefully we're answering some of your questions about kids, and we will come back to you in a little bit.
Relax with a cup of joe or your favorite drink for the Conroe Lake Conroe Chamber of Commerce Chamber Chat. The show airs on the first Tuesday of the month at 11 a.m. on Lone Star Community Radio. Join hosts Courtney Galley and Brian Bondi as they chat about the Chamber's events and programs for the month, and invite Chamber members into the studio to talk about their upcoming events and businesses. Learn about your Chamber with Chamber Chat every first Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647 3776.
This is Tony L. Collins with the Legal Connection Show, and the time has just flown by unbelievably because we didn't get to near what I wanted to get into with juvenile law and what you can experience when you go to court with your children, what the different places, what some of the alternatives are. But we will get into that in our next discussion. We'll answer some more questions for you, maybe perhaps off the air. This is the Legal Connection Show. You can reach us at www.legalconnectionshow.com. You can give us a call on voicemail, 281-529-5862. We're on the air between 12 and 1 every Tuesday. You can hear us on FM 104.5 and FM 106.1. We have a podcast. You can just Google us. You can go to IR Lone Star, I always forget what the call words are, but if you go to www.irlonestar.com, you can get more information about our show and listen to the podcast. If you have any questions about juvenile law, if you have any questions about any law, please give us a call, email us, ask us on Facebook. And I just want, it's Holy Week, make sure y'all go to church. And remember, importantly, that you serve God by serving your neighbor. So go forward and serve God. So I guess I will talk to y'all next week. Cheryl will join us again. Hopefully our show next week will be to continue this discussion on juvenile law and to go forward on annexation. That's going to be our topic.
Thank you for checking out this production of Lone Star Community Radio. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station. Don't forget to check out this show and many others across the Lone Star Community Radio Network, either live on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, the Lone Star Internet Radio app, or irlonestar.com's live audio stream, and on replay on podcast, Channel 12's Our City TV in Conroe, or Channel 21 KVQT in Houston, and of course their YouTube channel. This production is copyrighted and all rights are reserved by Lone Star Community Radio. Have a question regarding this program or other Lone Star Community Radio shows? Want to sponsor or start your own show? Call the station message line at 936-647-3776 or email the station at lscrstudios@gmail.com.